Would you like to create a mass movement around your podcast? Well, stick around because by the end of this episode, I'll be revealing the 3 things your podcast needs in order to form a strong community. Hey, welcome to Impact Podcaster Academy. My name is Alec Hassan, and I help podcasters create more impact and income online without them needing to go viral or rely on sponsors. So this episode is sort of a continuation of the last one where I talked about the importance of community for your podcast. If you haven't listened to that, I recommend you pause right now, go take a quick listen, and then hop back in after you've done that. So now that you've done that, there are really only 3 things that you need to implement in your podcast if you're looking to form a strong community, create lasting change for your audience, turn followers into fans, and generate some revenue too. I learned these 3 pillars from Russell Brunson, actually. He discovered them from having done a whole lot of research, reading all different types of history books, seeing how things were implemented throughout basically human history. And these 3 pillars to building a tribe are timeless. They're powerful truths, and they will help your podcast have a very tight-knit community. So, what is the first pillar? Well, the first pillar is something that we're all familiar with. It's the need for a central leader, someone that people can gather around and follow. So whether it's like the President of the United States, the CEO of a company, or like even Jesus for Christianity, people are looking for someone to lead the way. And I'm not saying you have to create your own religion or political movement here, but if you're going to create a community, you must have a leader. It might be you, it might be someone else on your show, but it's got to be a person. And, if you're listening to this, it's probably a good sign that, that leader might just be you. But if you're worried that you can't be the leader, I just want you to know that, whether you feel like you aren't ready right now, it doesn't really matter. There's this great saying that I've heard before where it says, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies those whom he calls. So if you're not ready, if you don't feel ready, everything that you do from this point moving forward is only going to equip you more and more to essentially lead your audience to a better place than where they're at now. So, at first you might feel like you suck and you can't be a leader. And essentially, I just want you to know, that's perfectly fine. You're allowed to suck in the beginning. It's okay. But as you develop more, you're going to suck less. And then as you suck less, you're going to develop even more skills. And it kind of becomes like this upward spiral effect. Soon you're going to suck so little that you might actually be pretty good. Now, the second part for creating a community is that people not only need to look at you as the leader, but they also need to look to the future as well. They need something that they can believe they are moving towards. In the last episode, I used this example of CrossFit. And for continuity purposes, I'm going to use CrossFit as an example again. But CrossFit, they draw, the big draw for it is that people are able to see that they're moving towards being more athletic and being in better shape. The CrossFit Games, they got this slogan that talks about being the fittest people on earth. These people are moving towards something. So some of you might hear this and think like, oh yeah, this makes perfect sense for my podcast. And for others, you may not see how it lines up. But I want you to know, I'll be going in future episodes, we'll go into super depth about this. I can assure you that not only do you need this, but you can definitely use it in your podcast as well. So if you're not too sure, trust me, stick around. I'll be, breaking down the steps, and I'll show you how it can be applied in your podcast as well. So we had the first pillar, which is the leader. The second pillar is this future hope. What's this future that you're going to be bringing people to? And the third and final pillar to creating a solid community. This is really important because you can imagine that it's like the fuel and it's also the glue that holds everything together. And when you do it properly, it makes it much easier for people to say yes to joining your community. And it'll also have people stay in your community for much longer as well. So this third foundation, it's about creating a new experience or a different experience for your audience. It's not just creating something that's the same. You're providing something different to help get them to that future that you painted out for them earlier. It can be different in terms of how or what you're talking about. It could be different in terms of where you're leading them. As long as it's unique and it gets people what they want, then you're pretty much good. But there's a lot of brands out there. I'd say like a lot of brands that you see that struggle with implementing this are brands that merely provide improvements. It's something like getting like having a better sounding microphone or having a bigger celebrity guest speaker. You could think of it like back when the iPhone first came out and companies were trying to imitate the iPhone, but they were offering things like slightly better. So it was like, oh, we got a slightly better camera, or like our battery lasts a little bit longer. But as you know, many diehard Apple fans, a better camera or a better battery is just not going to cut it. What these companies would need to do is present something that's completely different that they haven't experienced before, and that will help to attract more people. Samsung has started to do that, where they have like the folding phones. Technology is still a little bit early, at least at the time of recording this, but you can see that they're going in a direction that could have attracted more people. Price point was a little bit too high. I think they're trying to go for the early adopters. Anyway, that's a little bit sidetracked for this episode, but when it comes to your show, you want to provide something different. That way people can't compare it to other things. You stand out from the crowd. But if you're not too sure, like, okay, well, how do I know if I'm providing something different versus providing something that's just an improvement? Well, there's a pretty cool test you could do for this. And the thing that can help you quickly identify if it's an improvement is that you can just ask yourself, does the thing end in an ER? It's like, what do you mean by that? It's like, well, if the thing that makes you different is that you do something faster, fast ER, or it's longer ER, shorter, cleaner, bigger, smaller, etc. Like if it ends in an ER, it's basically considered an improvement. And if you provide an improvement, someone else can always out improve you eventually. But if you provide something different, something that's different is something that other people can't compete with. You're literally, in this league of your own. Wendy's did a pretty cool thing where instead of trying to say, our burgers are better, they're fresher, they're cleaner. No ER. What they said is, our burgers are never frozen. And people are like, whoa, that's different. It's like, yeah, they're different. If you like McDonald's, I'm not going to tell you our burger is better than McDonald's. I'm just going to tell you that, McDonald's, they freeze their meat. So it's like a hockey puck. We never freeze our meat. So it's always fresh. And it's like, oh, I might have to try that. It's different. You see how that goes? So basically, those are the 3 pillars to a solid community, building a solid tribe for your podcast. You need the leader, you need that future hope, that future promise, and you got to offer them something different. Now, this episode, it was definitely like, this was just an overview of the 3 things. So if you felt like, man, I wish I could learn a little bit more about it, well, you're in luck, because, in the coming episodes, I'm going to be breaking down each one of these different pillars. And I'm actually going to walk you through the steps for how you can apply it in your own show as well. So to wrap up, I want to know who on your podcast, could be the leader for your community. Is it you? Is it someone else? Is it going to be you and someone else? Also, what are, some of the positive futures that you can paint out for your community to strive towards? And last but not least, what are some things that you're doing differently in your podcast that could be used to attract more people to your show? I'd love to hear what you come up with. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.